you switch your chair back, it'll be back now.
This was a good turnout for this.
Me too. How are you? Okay, I will see you.
My guess is it'll be less than
Should we start, Cam? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Selectboard meeting Monday, May 6th, 2018 at 6 o'clock. A motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Any discussions?
Well, yeah, we gotta do the minutes of April
No,
22nd.
no, the agenda. I want to.
Yeah, does that have to be put in there, though? April 22nd?
Yeah, I guess you do have to amend it. Okay. I'll make the amendment. So we have an amendment to add the minutes of April 22nd, that special town meeting, that special meeting we had at the town hall. Any objection? So all in favor of the adopted agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes, we have the minutes of April 15th and the minutes of April 22nd. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented?
On April 15th,
Yes.
number 7, there's probably a typo. Comment was made, I think it should be. It
Yep.
says MED.
Yeah.
And thought we finally had him corrected, but he's back to it again. Gets my name right most of the time, but down on 11, falls back into
And you always catch them.
well, it's a glaring error to me.
Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes of either the 15th or the 22nd? All right, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second? I'll second it. All, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The warrants were presented of 426 and were signed and approved. Highway report, Danny? We have no excess weight and pit, so let's scratch that. We have the trailer plus anything else that you,
I've looked at a few trailers, but there's nothing that's that worthy, so still looking. I don't know, the ones I've been looking at have been around 5,000. There's some out there around 65, but like I say, I haven't found anything that was really worth having right now. For that. I got a letter here from Eastman Sand and Gravel on winter sand for the following year. We go with him. We've been paying $8 a yard in his pit. We truck it ourselves, and it's going to go up $1 a yard to $9 a yard for sand. He just sent a letter out. I'll let you guys all know that.
can we truck it?
You truck it.
That's with our trucking? That's just for the sand?
Just the
material?
sand. Yeah. Don't want to run that by before I truck any.
Well, do you have any recommendation?
Well, being so close, and I mean the sand's been good so far. I don't think you're gonna find anything cheaper than that. Even if you found it for that price and it's, further away, you're gonna spend more on fuel. So I think it's
I don't have my thing, what's budgeted for sand?
60.
60?
We're under by 30 something this year.
I understand we're not bidding it because it's local and stuff. I have some real concerns about $60,000 and not bidding.
Well, last year we spent like 20, I'm gonna say 28, I'm not exactly sure, about 28,000 that we hauled it. And that's why I'm bringing it to, if you guys wanna put it out to bid, goes out to bid again, it'll be more than $9 a year.
How many years have you been buying the sand?
Since the pit's been open over there, so it's been 4 or 5 years, I wanna say.
This is probably the last year or not coming close?
He says a couple more, but I don't know, it doesn't look like a lot in there to me.
Where do you get it again?
Eastman Sand and Gravel off of Eastman Road.
The good thing about it is that you control your own destiny. You can go and pick it up when you wanna pick it up. You can fill it in where if you bid it out with a truck, then with a trucking company or whoever, then it's when they wanna deliver it to you.
And if it is further away, it probably will not be possible for us to truck all the way there, so.
Right.
Sosmo don't have any that they make the pit, they don't do sand out of there. So you'd be looking at like Coal River Materials,
That's in Walpole.
Walpole, yeah.
Yeah, but that's Jamaica and Walpole, you're talking triple, quadruple the distance you have to travel.
What about, if you were to go somebody else, do you have to commit to a volume? Like.
Well, we put it out a bid, we put down like.
Let me ask the whole question. So if, currently, we get what we need from him, or do we commit to a certain, yardage?
We just
As
truck
needed.
as needed, pretty much.
And if we were to go to somebody else, would we have to commit to a certain yardage?
You
In
would
order
wanna
to
put
put
in
out
a
a
bid,
bid?
you would wanna put, if you're gonna put it out to bid, you'd wanna put in there to what you think you're gonna use, or what you're gonna truck.
Correct. And so what happens if you didn't need all that?
I would word it that it was up to a certain amount, so
Okay.
it doesn't make you take it all.
And then what would happen in the scenario where we committed to somebody else and we needed more than that?
They got it themselves,
This current situation we have, even though, you know, we get what we need, so we don't have to.
as long as he has it.
Correct.
So as far as availability is about the same as all of them, I think.
Well, he guaranteed that there's enough this year?
He told me that there's plenty for us.
I mean, I understand, Stan, your policy we have, but, I mean, we've been doing this for what, now, 5 years, I guess?
Well, I guess if we're gonna talk about bidding, we ought to talk about crushed gravel too.
Well, you,
Right now, we go and we pick it up and we stockpile, we haul it in here and stockpile it. We just go to wherever they get it, which is a lot of times to Sosmo or Eastman. But we haven't bid that for the last 4 or 5 years either.
At this point, what would be wrong with continuing to do business where we are until that pit runs out with a year or two? And at that point, we're gonna have to go through what you're suggesting.
That price is a lot less expensive than we ever paid in Rockingham.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
It is cheap.
I'm not doubting the
No,
whole,
right.
I'm not doubting the whole process, but we do have a policy that's in there, and we're avoiding that policy. But
And I don't know
understand
how
the
that works because
rationale
it's
for it.
not, we're not buying really over that $5,000 at one time because the bill cycles go, you know, we buy once you bill. So I don't know how that works. Yeah.
that's kind of that's kind of, getting around the corners, I mean, in
But
reality.
you're
it's-
trucking it, you know, it's like Sosmo, we're go over there, we might get, 20 loads this week. Then you may not get any more for a month.
Right.
So, but I mean, if you're gonna put it out to bid, you're gonna wanna give them some type of a number, what do you think you're gonna truck in a year's time?
But also, the good thing about having him there and buying the sand from him, if you have another flood or catastrophe, something happens, and you need material, he might say to you, sorry, go somewhere else. Where, you have the availability there to pull it out. So I think there are a lot of pluses to it. And you fit it in on your schedule, right? I mean, if you have a down day or somebody raining or whatever the case might be, you
Yeah.
just go and truck it.
Yep. We use it as a fill-in most of the time.
I think that the next realistically closest pit from that would be Butch Wilson's pit on,
He's out of sand.
the one on, really,
I was told he's pretty much done.
fantastic.
So I don't know, I mean, I would say your next bet is Lane's, is over in,
Yeah.
Lowell, which I know they just clear cut 30 acres off, which they're hoping for sand.
Yep.
So, but I haven't heard no more, that was earlier on.
Well, it sounds like lots of pluses that we've mentioned. Have you sorted out any other, areas for lower price? I mean,
You're
you're
not
just
gonna-
assuming right now.
You're not gonna beat their price. And if you do, you're gonna be traveling twice the distance at least.
Then it adds cost to it, because then you got fuel and wear and tear on the trucks.
Right.
I make a motion for this year that we continue as we're doing.
Do we have a second to that?
Full second.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on the motion before we take a vote?
Would you include at $9, please?
Yeah, at $9. Stan, do you? All right, so it's all in favor of buying the sand at $9, per, what is it, per
Per year.
per yard
Yeah.
from Eastern Standing Gravel? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the going price for gravel? You don't know,
It depends if it's gravel, Sherpack, it's anywhere from
plant mix?
$12.50 to $17 a yard. The plant mix or Sherpack that we've been buying in mud season, which I probably will continue to buy, is $16.50 to $17, depending on inch and a quarter. Straight crushed gravel, I think, is $12.50 out of Eastern Sand and Gravel. But it does not pack like the Sherpack or the other, so you use a lot less of it.
Can you get a bigger Sherpack? 2 inch or something? Would that be
Oh,
too
you
big?
can, but
That'd be too big?
we'll be buying tires.
Oh.
Inch and a quarter is pretty much max, even to grade into the road. So I stick with an inch to inch and a half. Inch and a quarter, I guess.
That stuff worked really good during this mud season, I'll tell you that.
Well, there's a lot of benefits from it.
It did.
You don't have the dust in the summer months. It holds the moisture, so you don't have to chloride. You don't have to grade as often. So,
No, it's, once it gets packed down, it's almost like on a road.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a complete ledge product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. Everything's gonna be sooner or later.
Danny, on the bill, I was looking, I stopped to sign warrants on the way in. And, at Sosimo's Pit, most of the time when you bought, it would list 14 yards, you know, and you say, all right, there's a truckload, there's a truckload. But sometimes there was like 56 yards.
So if we're hauling,
So if all 3 trucks went, or 2 trucks went,
they're supposed to give you a slip every trip.
that per truck.
Per
Each-
truck.
Okay.
But if you're hauling all day, you just you're
I
coming
just
back.
totaled it up.
Yeah, just give you a slip at the end of the day.
Kind of figured that
Yeah.
that was it, or there's a different guy working that day or something.
No, well, there's different ones, but that's what that is. So a lot of times, you know, it depends. If you're only getting one load, you give you the slip. But if you're telling them you're coming back,
Yeah.
they'll hold the slip and just put it all on one at the end of the day for you.
So you don't get weighed?
No, by the yard, and you get good yardage.
Well, I was thinking for overweight. I was just thinking of weight.
If you have red plates,
Plausible
Yeah, yeah,
deniability.
I wouldn't worry about it. Plates are red.
we're overweight. The trucks are so heavy being a town truck. I mean, we only can run legally like at 60,000. Probably run 72. Yeah.
Don't ask.
We don't
Don't
ask.
ask.
Don't
Don't
ask.
ask.
Um,
Can
Just so we have it on the record, Danny, we do have a letter from Montecalvo about the pine trees. So, do we need a motion, or should we just put it into, do you wanna make a motion that we take care of the trees, or you just wanna list it so that it goes on the record?
It sounds like something was already in the works, right? That you're-
Yeah, but I don't think we discussed it, right?
Well, I guess
We have
we
official
tried
letters.
to last, end of the summer last year, Melvin Rice, tree service, was supposed to come and do it.
Oh, okay.
And then he never showed up because of weather and then it get put off, so I'll try calling him again.
All right.
And I just tell him, you know, if we can't get it scheduled in the next 2 weeks to do it, then I'll start calling other companies. I ought to be more, but we just get it done.
Well, I think it's important for the response to Monte Carlo show that, you know, we discussed it
Yes,
before, and it
right.
was on the agenda, and we tried to get them, and
There-
so,
When this was brought up the last time, there was 1 or 2 trees up there that were supposed to be done. Though there's the ones at the village bridge that are dead, that he was gonna lift out, cut them and lift
Yeah.
them out, so there wasn't any of the other shrubs. And then there was a big ash tree out on Townsend Road, out by the Christmas tree plantation way out. That they were gonna take down because of the power lines, and it's got a big rot spot in the base. Stewart came and looked at them, but they said it was raining one day and he canceled, and it's just been back and forth. But I'll call him again tomorrow, and see if he doesn't bring it, someone else at least do them up there.
Well, they do bring up a valid point, it's on a major traveled road.
Yeah. And if it takes the wire out, it takes all of Ragland Road apparently.
The only thing I have was about the Eastman defense that you sent an email on. And the email about the state bid price, which I think Bill was just gonna send it in so it's there, but not necessarily we don't have to buy from the companies that the state picks from,
The salt.
the salt.
Did you find out if any of the towns that bought it from the state were shorted last year, or did they get?
Mark said that everybody there wasn't any problem with getting salt. It was wet often, and they had to, they went after the company pretty hard on moisture in the salt, a lot, and it isn't very good. So they may not even get it from there's out by Rochester or something like that, New York, somewhere out there. They may never, he said he doesn't know who they're gonna buy it from this year unless they had a multi-year contract, they may very well not get it from them.
But we can still go with
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
But the question is, we can still fill the thing out. It isn't saying that you're going to do it, it's just that if you were, what you need. So I can fill the thing out and send it in, had to be in by the 21st, I think. But it's, if you guys want me to do that, that's fine. But you don't have to buy it from them, and we can look to where we got it last year.
We filled it out last year.
Yeah.
With them too.
You gonna bid that out, the salt?
There's no one to
There's
bid it out
no
to.
one to bid.
Yeah, there's nobody to bid it to.
So it's either the state or who did we get from last year?
Bear, Caravan,
Okay.
which is still a bid price through the state.
Right.
It's done, because the state bought some through them.
Oh, okay. So
Just
we're paying what the
different
state pays, is that the deal?
They do it by regions, mileage is how it's figured out.
Okay,
So every town it's a little bit different because they figure in the trucking cost.
okay.
So, I know last year when we discussed it, we ended up staying with, Barrett, or Carswell. I think we ended up paying like $6-7 a ton more than they did under state price through New York. But like I say, you can see the difference in the salt. I think everybody ran the problem last year with wet salt. And I think that's why some of our uses were so high, is you're paying for a lot of water. When we filled our shed last year, we had like 550 ton or 600 ton in it before we touched any of it. Never gotten that much in there before. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised when we paid for
A lot of water.
hotel. Yeah. But we started rejecting them on a small town, and you won't get any salt. So
Yeah, let sleeping dogs lie, so to speak.
we sent a load back years ago. And we won't do that again.
You didn't
We
hear
were
from
nothing
them.
to, a company that size. Yeah.
Just wanna back up a little bit, that fence on Eastman, is any of that in the minutes? I think we ought to put that in the minutes, the thing about
Yeah,
that.
I have.
You have it? Okay.
Anything else, Danny?
The rubbish, that was brought up. I don't know if that was done during the meeting or before.
No, yeah, the rubbish on Anderson Road?
Well, I guess there's some problems up on Woodland Hill. On Anderson Road, they're just wondering if the town would put up a no dumping sign or something. I don't know what that does,
I think you got the signs last year for that.
Yeah,
Stan, if it means anything,
I think I got 5.
One.
Small.
I think I got one.
I was talking to
I think it's
Walter,
more.
they have a problem in Burgess, and they put signs up there on the surveillance, and since they put the signs on the surveillance by camera, they had no more issues. And I have an issue with vast trails on my property, Ruber's property, and other people's, and I just put up signs, that say that, and I just put 2 cameras up. I talked to the game warden, and the game warden said, if you put, the sign should say surveillance, because then they know, and they think 3 times before they actually do it. Because the only way you can do anything is you gotta have proof.
Right.
You can't say, well, that's his rig. You have to have physical proof. So maybe we should just put some signs up there on the surveillance, even if you don't put a camera up there, but put it.
Well, we had the camera up there, last time I had it up there, I had 2,000 pictures of leaves wiggling back.
But
Every
was
time
that
a
a
leaf
good
would-
thing? Because then they didn't come and. They knew the camera was there.
Who's gonna do the signs?
I had mine done at Vermonte's, I don't know, and I had they're a pretty big sign. I don't know if, I don't remember the price, but they made 6 for me. a couple
The
of
signs
days.
I got were the same signs the state uses,
Yeah,
the
right,
postal
yeah.
law, it's that yellow
Right,
sign
yeah.
that's up on Windmill. But that does not say
No.
under surveillance. If you want it to read under surveillance, you have to purchase.
Yeah, Vermonte's made mine, I made them in aluminum, and they're red and white with a big no
I
on
would
it.
call,
But the
sign company if you're gonna buy them.
the state might make
The
them.
state.
Yeah, I'm gonna call
They
it.
might be cheaper than
I will.
Vermonte's.
I'll call the correction.
Yeah.
You might be able to legality involved in it too. I mean, by posting a sign on town property or something.
I don't know, the game warden didn't have any problem with it, but I don't know, I mean, is that a violation of rights?
What's that?
Putting up a camera on private property to,
We're putting them on the town right away.
Put them in town right away.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
yeah? I mean, I wouldn't think it's a problem, but you never know today.
Other than that, we got a couple catch basins we're gonna be working on in the streets, some culverts and grading. I'm gonna start trying to blow some of the leaves too, and keep enough dry days. I will be off Wednesday and Thursday this week.
Okay. Anything else with Danny?
I have a highway question and kind of a procedural. It's really actually more of a select board procedure, I guess. Not this set of payroll, but the one before. I noticed that the road crew came and worked on a Saturday in Eastman, and when I asked around, I was told that they were paged in by a select board member. It's always been my understanding that the select board is the 5 of us, and for one of us to call them in on the weekend doesn't give the rest of us an opportunity to be part of the conversation or express a concern if we have, whatever. Is that really the way we want to operate, that just any one of us can call and ask them to come in? If it's a true emergency, I think that's a different situation. If it's somebody in town complaining and we're responding to a complaint, I think that should be a board decision rather than an individual decision.
Just so everybody's aware, I was that individual that did that. I thought it warranted it. I thought that road was in very, very bad shape. And before we ended up getting towing bills to get cars out of that muck down at the end, some of that was really bad. I thought it warranted it. If we want to make it a point that we have to notify all 5 people, we can certainly do that. But I did that. It was my decision to do that. And I thought it warranted.
I'm not faulting you for doing it.
No, I'm just saying.
I want
that's
to know, is that how we're going to do business, or are we going to do business and say we need a majority, a quorum, to say, yep, come in on the weekend? And it certainly could be a situation where people realize, hey, if I call Stan Mack or I call Al Sands, whoever I call, I get results. Danny's then out of the picture, and you know, they just go to the person they get action from. And I just asking the board if that's how we wanna do business.
I went out there and I rode the entire road. I didn't go out and just call because somebody called me. Rode the entire road all the way to Chester, turned around and came back on the same road. And I thought it warranted the action.
Well, for emergencies, you need to have the roads open and not get stuck for either fire trucks or rescue, so, good call.
Bill?
I'd like to be part of the conversation. I go out and see roads that are a mess, and I called in. I haven't called in when he's off, but I called in. I said, where are you guys working? And he looked and he's seen this, and usually he's aware, and he's on his way there. I mean, but, yeah, am I not to say anything to anybody?
I'm gonna respond to any page, no matter who it is, but you guys are my, you know, you five are my boss, so regardless where it comes from, I'm gonna go, you know, I didn't call Stan right back because I wanna go look at it, but.
I'd like to make a suggestion. We have another similar issue on an agenda, the policy of how an agenda is done. So I've talked to Bill about it, and I want to put it on the minutes on the meeting of the 20th to talk about the agenda, so we can make sure that everybody understands what the policy should be. Maybe we should put this on, and we can discuss it next week or next meeting on how, if we should have a procedure on how, if a select person or sees an emergency, is that okay for that person to call and have action, or do we need to have, a contact? I'm just saying, maybe we need to discuss it.
And
set a policy for it.
I'm not upset about it, I just wanna know how we want to operate.
Sure, so I think Joe's point is good.
So I'll put that on the agenda for the two things.
Yep.
Because maybe we do need a policy, I don't know.
Well, we don't have to have a policy, but we could at least have a handshake agreement among the board that this is how we're doing business.
I don't think you wanna go to a policy because, I mean,
Well, what I'm saying
a
is,
tree comes down and you page you and I say, well, go find out from the other four.
I don't need a written policy, but an understanding of what we do. You know what I mean? An
We can
understanding.
just agree amongst ourselves, this is how we're doing business.
I mean, we don't need a written policy, but we all can agree that this is
Yep.
what has to happen, and obviously, we can talk about it at the, on the 29th. Right? Does that
I won't be
solve
here on
the
the
problem? You're not gonna come to the Walker Bridge meeting?
Oh, I told you.
Oh, that's right, you're not
That's what we
here.
consider the
I forgot, you're not here. Anything else for Danny? Okay, the health officer. Alan and I have not had a chance to meet with Jay. Apparently, he is our health officer. I guess he got approved or whatever. As soon as we can reach him, Alan and I, we will have either a telephone conversation or a meeting with him to see how he wants to handle some of the issues that have been raised on renters and various things like that.
Everybody may not be aware that he took a fall and broke some ribs, and so he's been kind of laid up. So there's some legitimate reason for a delay in response.
The health officer doesn't have to live in Grafton or be a resident here anymore, why?
I don't know, that's,
I mean, he's 99
he's
years
appointed
old.
by the state. It's a state appointee.
The state, just for Rockingham, the health officer in Rockingham lives in New Hampshire.
I don't mind that so much. He has got a little age on him now.
Bill?
Yeah, I emailed him and told him, congratulations, because I just saw the letter when I got back. And the certification, sent him a copy of that, which I sent to you guys, and said that he needs to meet with the two of you.
Yeah, so we'll discuss that. Obviously, he's capable, he's always done whatever we asked him to do. So he's been Johnny on the spot, so, I guess when it comes to, he had one more year, so maybe he wants to.
3 years.
Was it a 3-year appointment? Oh, sorry, I thought it was.
3
3 years.
All right, so he has 3 more years, so we'll see what happens.
Stay well.
I hope he can make it.
Going for a bigger retirement.
I think it's important to know that the health officer's job is pretty comprehensive, if he's following all the state regs. And I brought that up, I sent to each of the board members the manual. I was amazed at what they're supposed to do. And granted, he does, when there's a complaint or an issue, he follows up on it. But I was amazed at all the things the health officer for the state of Vermont is supposed to be doing.
And as a result of Kathy's letter, this is why the Personnel Committee was going to meet with Jay and see what his plan is, and then come back to the board with yes, no, or what do you want to do about it, so to speak.
He's been to all the classes on the new laws, what's expected of him. I think maybe all of you should better read what's expected of him, because you may have to hire somebody with real money, because if that's what you want him to do. The state has just cast this out on all the towns, put the burden on all the towns to do these things. If you're Springfield and you have a full-time fire chief who loves this because he never could get people to clean up their properties or clean up their houses or get rid of pigsties that they have people living in, if you were him, yeah, you love it. But are we gonna have whomever, our health officer go out and inspect homes on their own proactively? That's what the state wants you to do. And if that's what you guys want to do, then you better rethink that whole position, and you better rethink your whole budget.
And not for $1,000 either. You're not gonna do that for $1,000 a year.
You're not gonna do it for $50,000 if he's full-time. Because you gotta pay his health, you gotta pay, everything. Right. So I think you really have to look at it and see what you can do, or maybe join with another town and the two of you hire somebody. There's all sorts of things you can do like that. But it's unreasonable what the state expects the 250 little villages in this state.
Well, maybe is there? Can you get a copy of the law to?
There's a whole presentation. I'll get it.
Okay.
I'll get to.
So that we're aware of it, so we can kind of take
Because it's a big deal.
Okay.
Well, we gotta start that ticketing at some point, right?
Well, you would have
Enforcement.
really to make it work. Well, you need ticketing. You can take them to court, Superior Court, but that never works well. Ticketing works really well.
So that's something we're gonna talk.
The service board, Kim and I had talked about this a year ago, and it's just one of those kind of things that never got discussed. And we have a lot of people here who run for office and serve for many, many years. 20 years, 15, 30 years, whatever. And it came up because when Cynthia retired from being a town clerk, a group of people went in and they took her to lunch and they bought her a little whatever. And I think it would be very nice for the select board to have a program, which I will present at some point down the line, where a person who is elected or serves on a committee, like a planning commission, and it doesn't have to be consecutive. It could be, you could serve 10 years and then go off for 2 and then come back again. But if you serve more than 20 or 25 years, whatever the number might be, is that not only do you get a recognized with a plaque, but there'll be something in the town hall that recognizes that individual. And I just think it's for for people who serve for many, many years, I think it's just a little reward that's nice, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do, and I think it's something nice. And Kim and I had talked about that. And yes, I remember when I served before, I served 12 years, the Selectboard gave me a plaque. Well, it's fun, and I still have it, I hang it in my look at it, but they did it, but it should be something, I think, that happens, for everybody. And so anyway, so we'll make that presentation at the subsequent meeting and come up with an idea, and so that everybody can kind of take a look at it and give you input and see how you want to handle it, whether it's 20 years or 25 or whatever. So that's all. I just wanted to get on the agenda. It's one of those kind of things that I keep forgetting to put on, and I just want to get everybody thinking about it. So, Hardy, I think you're next on the capital.
What do you want?
Well,
I'm here.
Here's the question. We voted, the town voted to put $149,000 in the capital budget.
I have a schedule here that will identify the money that's available
Right.
for all of these
Right,
different projects.
Right.
So I'd
And-
like to give that out.
Okay, that's
now,
fine.
And you can look at it,
that's good.
so you'll know where we are.
So the question comes is that, when you did this capital budget reserve, we have 100 and,
Well, let's start right from the beginning of the schedule so that everybody knows where we are exactly.
okay,
As of 6/30/2018, which was last year, there was a total of $251,196 that had been allocated in previous capital budgets that was in the funds balance or on reserves. I'm not sure what the accounting is for these funds, but there's $251,196. In 2018 and 19, which was last year, another 149,000 was voted, and that's not this year, that was last year, the year before. And so far, there's only $15,000 has been given to the fire truck fund, and $5,597 have been spent for computers for a total of spending of $20,597, which means in a couple of months, which will be 6/30/2019, we will have $379,599 in our capital funds balance, of which 50,507 is in the highway roadway program, 65,934 in the structures program, which is basically culverts, $218,516 in the highway equipment fund, 12,000 in guardrails. The fire truck fund has been spent. The town hall has 11,239, and this is over and above the 100,000. So I would think you might even spend that money and see what's left when you get to the 100,000. You may not spend all of the 100. Bridges, scraping and painting, $17,000. Computer replacements will have 4,403 left, and I think we have spent all the money we actually need to for computers for the next couple of years, because we just redid them all in the town hall, including the listers. The bridge construction, we had nothing. So the total is $379,599, and then you have $100,000 there for the Walker Bridge. Now, at the town meeting, which just happened in March, another 149 was voted and will be spent or given to the town from taxes in this coming year, which is $10,500 for the structures, $75,000 for equipment, guardrails 4,000, 15,000 again for fire truck, 5,000 for bridges and scraping, 3 for computer replacement, and we put in 36,500 for bridge construction programs, which could be used for the Walker Bridge or any other bridge. So what that means, without any more spending, I don't know what the select board is going to spend their money on, we will have a total of $528,599 in the capital budget fund and $100,000 in the Walker Bridge fund. So that's where we are, funds balance wise, for this town right now, or will be. So I don't know what the questions are.
Point of clarification, please. Is the 379 in cash and the 140 is coming in through taxes?
That's correct. That'll come in through the taxes starting in August.
Thank you.
But the 379 should be in our funds balance or in our bank account somewhere, drawing interest.
Great.
and that doesn't include the 100,000 for the Walker Bridge.
Right, which also.
And
So
I
is
think
that
what's
cash?
left, what's
Yeah.
left?
Town hall.
Yeah.
Town hall is about, what,
Be
70,000
60,
left?
70,000.
Yeah, so left, so, anyway. So the question comes is that we wanted, the board, I think, wants to go forward with the expense this year. That's looking at a excavator,
Yeah,
replacing the pickup, I think that was part of the deal, was it not?
I think so.
That was one of the original proposals you made
Right,
to us. yeah.
okay. And then I don't know what else was there, and you've got the small truck, but it's due, it's due next year, correct? But you
That's
couldn't
right.
buy it even if you wanted to, because you have to order it, so you have to order it now to get it next year. Is that correct? So I guess the question is, that my original concern was the $400,000 for the Walker Bridge, because that has to come at some point in time. Alan and I had talked about it the other day when we were up here meeting with the road crew after we had done. And Alan made a valid point, is that why would we want to start to collect money for the Walker Bridge now and have taxpayers' money to sit there for 6 years, or maybe 7 years, or maybe 8 years, because nobody really knows when the bridge is going to be built. So if we don't have enough money, you go out and borrow the damn thing. So I don't have a concern, of me, of how we're going to fund it anymore. So my concerns are over.
Okay.
There was some question, Hardy, and I came and talked to you about it
Yeah.
after it was raised, that for us to proceed spending the money, that we needed to come back and talk to the capital budget committee, and that wasn't how I understood it.
That's not correct.
Once the voters voted it.
The voters have voted it,
Right,
the money is there.
right,
The select board are the people who decide how to spend the money.
correct. And in my mind, after town meeting, we were kind of in a similar situation as the special town meeting was with the school board, where the voters directed the school board to proceed and sign. And to me, it was a similar situation where the voters said, we're approving the capital budget and it's authorized for the select board to proceed.
I would agree with that. And I would say you need to get estimates of what you want to spend the money. Do you really want to get the excavator? And if you do, you gotta get a quote on it and figure out how much is it gonna cost us. And that's gonna come out of this $293,000. And I'd say there's enough money here probably to lease an excavator and also get a truck. That would be just looking at the numbers. Because you need to also, when you're gonna, if you're gonna order a truck and it's a year out, you should go to whoever you're gonna order it from and say, we want a truck. We wanna know what we're gonna get for the truck that we're turning in, because it's gonna be, you're gonna get cash for that as a trade-in. And what's it gonna cost us? And then you're probably gonna have to make a down payment, but you'll know in a year, you'll get your truck and you pay for it. So,
Well, the reason I wanted to have Hardy here so he could explain it, so it goes in the minutes.
Yep.
So everybody understands what we're supposed to be
That's
doing,
fine.
and that was my only purpose. So, Bill?
Yeah, except for the 100,000. You can spend the
Yes.
money except for the reserve.
You can't spend the reserve for the Walker Bridge and reserve for the town hall unless the vote is. Yeah, but the other stuff, and it was checked by VLCT, through the accountants, and everybody agrees that yes, the money can be spent however you want to spend it, and if you want to spend it the way it was supposed to be spent, that's fine. And if you had an emergency and you didn't want to buy it, you could do something else with it, but that's it.
Also, I think Hardy heard this from Kim today. VLCT would prefer not to use reserves.
Reserve, yeah, so
In
we'll change.
above. So-
okay, so we can change it to
Change.
fund balance.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was called a reserve from my accounting background.
Well, everybody has called
Here's what I
it,
call
but in the
reserve.
state law,
I don't
it
like
means
the word
something
Oh,
different.
there,
Yeah, they don't like reserve, for some reason or other,
So
it's a bad
it
word. I don't know why.
Well, it just sort of
After
puts
that,
everything in
I looked at our town report, and it says funds
Yes.
balance, so, I guess that's
So
different
we'll change this
in-
to capital.
from reserve to
Fund balance.
fund balance. So I will, in all future correspondence and schedules that I do, I will list it as funds, you know.
And the reason is, in state law, reserve accounts are the Walker Bridge thing.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
you're voted, and that's the only way you can use it unless you go back to the voters.
Right.
Single purpose.
Yeah. So does somebody want to make a motion now that so that Danny can get started with the two pieces of equipment and the third piece of equipment that you're gonna do for next year?
I would make a motion based on what we just heard, that we proceed in the direction of a lease to purchase excavator after Danny tries out, figures out which is the right one. The truck that he's gonna have to order for a year from now. And the pickup is in the budget for now. I would make a motion that we head in that direction.
Second?
Do the necessary paperwork.
Okay. We have a second, Josh. Now, do we have any other discussion?
What are we gonna do this summer for an excavator?
I would say that once, what I'm hearing right now is I would start calling dealers and say we want to demo them. We'd demo at least 5 of them. Because they all said they would. That should give us a couple of weeks. And,
Not all at
Here on
once.
camera.
no, but they, I mean, they all said they would give you can try them for a couple of days each. So, that's the best way to see, what you're gonna purchase.
In the meantime, we can do something with it.
Well, that's I hear of it. But we would do that, and we would schedule it to do that, and then after that was done,
You get an idea.
you know what you're looking at after the 5, you write the specs around the one that you think is the best for the town,
Take the
and
bids.
you put it out to bid with, we can break it up however, then lease, purchase,
Lease to
5 year.
purchase.
Lease, all the leases are to purchase.
Oh,
So at the end of the lease, you own it on all the big stuff. That's how I do the excavators. The pickup, depending what you guys, the last time we just bought a 3/4 ton gas pickup, GMC. You guys tell me if you want the same, what do you want?
Why would you get gas?
We did it because of the price.
No, I know, but I mean, you have diesel fuel here, why you would get it, I mean,
You could put it out
Put it out
as
for
a
bid, you
diesel
want-
and
Yeah,
gas. You
sure.
can have 2
Yeah.
specs. And we do put a plow on them.
Yeah.
And
You
then
buy it with the plow,
we would buy,
or at least with a flag.
we probably would just buy push plates on the truck, keep all our plows, because we don't run it every day and we've got it set up the way we want it.
Yeah.
So we would send the truck back with just the push plates, no plow on it. And we wouldn't, they would just, in the specs, it would say push plates to fit a minute mount too, so our stuff fits on it. That we can look into. The Freightliner, I know, which is the bigger truck, is the one that takes a year, and I haven't heard nothing back to how that works with the dealers around. That truck is kind of unique in its own way because it has to fit across the covered brush. And there's very few out there in that size truck, but that's, at least a year out.
but you
That's
should
how-
get it going so that you,
Yeah.
so we don't have to go through another winter
Right.
after this one with it.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
just gotta work with that 1 year
Yeah,
ahead of timeline.
They told me there's no, if you told them you were gonna do one, you would actually, it'd look like we're buying a truck a year early, cause we have to do the bid policy, but there's no money changing hands. So you still, until that truck comes in, so still be a year out.
And they hold that price if you,
But that's the stuff he was
right.
supposed to get back. I would say if it's a bid price, then that's it. I'm not sure on all that.
so we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Been seconded? All in favor of the motion to, Bill, you wanna read it back?
Yeah, based on the info that was given by Hardy, the town needs to proceed with the lease purchase of the excavator, the pickup to be bid out in diesel and gas with push plates that fit the plow, and to order the truck. Danny talked about being a Freightliner because of the Kidder Hill Bridge, and the second was Josh. Like I said, right?
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Hardy, for coming and telling us that. Okay, public comment? I know we have some public comment.
We have a presentation of sorts to give. Should we do it from right here, or is there a better place for us to present from?
No, any way you
I
want.
have packets.
Just
hand up.
Absolutely.
Stand up, I guess.
Can we share one collectively here so I can get
Yeah,
one
we
to build too?
have one right here.
So most of you know who we are. I'm Hayden Lake.
I'm Nora Lake.
And I'm Chris Polachensky. I'm Nora's husband. Nora and I were both born and raised here in Grafton. We're third generations of a 200-acre piece of land here that we manage as a sustainable forest land.
And we came here tonight because we wanted to discuss a public right-of-way that's being referred to as Legal Trail Number 8 that the town has mapped across our property here in Grafton. The right-of-way, Legal Trail 8, first appeared in the town maps in 2017. And recently it was marked with 2 road signs at either end of it. The road signs that I'm talking about are shown on the cover of your packet there, just for reference. We don't think that this trail is legal, and so we'll be asking the town to remove it. So thank you. We really appreciate you giving us the time to talk tonight. And we wanted to use this time to talk a little bit about the laws that govern this and share why we think the town was mistaken in putting this legal trail across our property.
If we're gonna have a presentation, if this was, otherwise, we have to have them back, and it's only fair to the people who come to the hearing to have a full presentation.
We discussed this with the board in the last 2 weeks. We weren't able to get on the agenda for tonight. We were busy for the next meeting, so that pushed us out all the way to June 6th or June 3rd meeting. So after some discussion, it was understood that we could come tonight, give a short presentation with the understanding that it would then be discussed by the select board. If we need to come back and do a formal presentation at a later date, we will. So we've traveled, in some cases, over an hour to be here tonight.
I would have to say, for me, and I'll let the other board members speak, I'm okay with the presentation, but if it goes on the agenda for the June meeting, then the presentation needs to be done again in the event that there are other people who are concerned. Because, you can do it twice, but if that's okay with you.
That would be fine.
Sure.
But I don't know, the board speak, I mean.
No, that's fine.
I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it, it's just that we can't make any decision tonight,
Right.
we need to do that.
We have to be awarded.
And
They know.
Right.
it needs to go on the agenda, which we will put it on the agenda, we were willing to put it on the 20th, but you're not available, so we'll put it on the next meeting, that you're available, and then we'll have our research there, and the same token, you can give your presentation again, if required, is that okay?
If need be.
Okay.
We were hoping we wouldn't have to present twice, but if it need be.
Well, I think we're gonna have to, because this is obviously a little more complicated than I thought it was gonna be, so.
Okay. Well, we might as well. Yep. Proceed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to help you get oriented, on the second page of the map of the packet is a map. It's the town road map, which is filed by the town with the Vermont Department of Transportation every year. And Legal Trail 8 is highlighted in yellow in the red box to make it easy for you to find. That mapped trail runs from 121 to Kidder Hill Road. On the next page, there's a more detailed map. So I downloaded the GIS data for the road from the state and overlaid it across our property boundary and the surrounding property boundaries. On the map, I marked the GPS locations of the signs that the town recently installed marking the trail, which are not, they don't match the mapped location of the road recorded by the Vermont Department of Transportation. The difference on Kidder Hill Road is about 1/3 of a mile, and this is not a mistake on our map making. All the roads and trails and signs were GPSed to within 12 feet of accuracy. I also mapped all the woods roads, walking trails, and old skid trails on our property. And you'll note that none of those lie along Legal Trail 8, and that the woods road closest to the mapped right-of-way was laid out and created for a timber harvest on our property in 2013. So there was no trail there prior. Also labeled on the map is our gate. The town has requested we remove the unlocked gate we've kept on the access to our property for decades. We placed the gate to discourage road damage by four-wheel drive vehicles and theft from our camp, which has occurred several times. It's located on a logging road that does not correspond in location or direction of travel to the mapped right-of-way of Legal Trail 8, and the gate's on the road where the town has placed its sign.
So you can see there were already some issues with mapping of the road, but there were also several other issues that we came across. We've been reviewing the law very carefully, and we're now quite confident that the mapping of a public right-of-way through our property wasn't done legally. So we're going to need to take you through why this is the case, sort of step by step, to show you exactly why we think there is no legal right-of-way for the town to claim through our land. So we're going to start by laying out the law, and then we'll discuss how the actions of the town weren't consistent with that law.
So first, I want to talk a little bit about the law, and I'm sure some of you know this or are able to just kind of go right from the basis. There has been some recent amendments to Vermont laws about ancient roads laid out long ago, but which haven't been used in modern times, have been creating some trouble for Vermont landowners. Unlike in many other states where a road that's not used for a long time is just automatically extinguished, they're never extinguished in the state of Vermont, even after long periods of disuse. That means, like, there was a case up by Shelburne, somebody built a house only to later recognize they'd built on a centuries old right of way. And obviously that's not a great situation for everybody involved in that case. So recognizing that this ownership ambiguity was not a good situation, the state legislature passed Act 178 in 2006. The purpose of the law was to clear up what rights of way the town actually did own and wanted to keep, and give up all other rights of way. The idea was to clean up these centuries of vague and underdocumented and outdated right-of-ways. In a nutshell, the towns had to document and map all rights of way prior to a deadline of July 1st, 2015, and the state mass discontinued any rights of way the town did not act to claim. It also established a bunch of due process to ensure that municipalities followed a fair and transparent process and provided landowners with notice about changes. The key outcome of Act 178, though, is that any trail or right-of-way not marked on the town maps by July 1st, 2015 ceased to exist. We'll get into the law in all of its detail, but first I wanted to give you an outline of the case in layman's terms. This is on page 4 of your packets. And right at the top box, it's at its simplest, the goal, in layman's term, of Act 178, passed in 2006, was to clean up old unused right-of-ways, get rid of this ambiguity. The main outcomes are listed in the next row, what the law means. The first was that the towns were required to map all the highways and legal trails by a deadline in 2015. The second is that any highways that weren't mapped or clearly in use were discontinued. And the third is a whole collection of processes that were intended to ensure transparency and give landowners notice of change was created. In the next row of the chart, the third row, I summarize what we consider to be the facts of the particular case, again in layman's terms. From left to right, the town missed the deadline to map the road in 2015, not mapping it until 2017. The road is indeed a vaguely documented old road, not in current use, and the town didn't follow the rules of due process in mapping it. So the conclusion would be that the town right-of-way was discontinued in 2015. We'll get into all the nuance of it to go through it, but that's just the layman's term general argument.
So in your packet, there's a lot of good information. You should take those if you want and go over it. We decided not to nitpick everything right here tonight. So the Orange Book, for instance, which some of you are familiar with, has some good information. We printed it and attached section 13 of the Orange Book. That's pages 5 to 11 of your packet, and we've highlighted a few sections of the book. The first highlighted section calls attention to the town's duty to file a sworn description of the measurements of all class 1, 2, 3, and 4 town highways and trails in existence every year. The next point highlighted summarizes the amendments that removed all the ancient road rights of way in 2015. And again, the key takeaway is that old class 4 roads that were not mapped or clearly being used were discontinued in 2015. And also highlighted our requirements that the town provide written notice to landowners to enter private property with the intent to map old roads. The handbook goes on to lay out procedures for reclassifying an ancient road as a Class 4 highway. And these include requirements for public notice and issuing a written public decision and supplying this documentation to the state.
After section 13 of the Orange Book, which we're just glazing through, it's really background material for you as you want. I placed a page in the packet that directly quotes all of the laws governing town highways in the state of Vermont, or well, not all of them, all the ones that are relevant to this case, of course. Most of the town highways are codified in Title 19, Chapter 3, Sections 1 through 18 of the Vermont statutes. We'll refer to them with the universal identifiers. So 19 VSA 301 means Title 19, Chapter 3, Section 1. The sections most pertinent to this issue are 19 VSA 302 and 19 VSA 305. They were modified by Act 178 in 2006. And these are the governing law behind those summaries that were in the Orange Book.
So the first three excerpts on the page are modifications to the 19 VSA 305, sections B through D. They were made in 2006 by Act 178. And it's worth reading these to kind of familiarize yourself. Section B sets out the town's responsibility to map all of its roads annually. Section C explicitly reinforces the fact that all the town roads must be mapped prior to the deadline of July 1st of 2015. So in other words, Act 178 gave the towns just about 10 years to document their rights of way. Section D ensures there again that no landowner will be surprised by an old right-of-way suddenly showing up and being mapped across their property by requiring 45 days of notice before that happens.
The next two excerpts after that are modifications to 19 VSA 302. They were made by Act 178, and the language here was quoted nearly verbatim in the Orange Book as well. Section A creates a new class of roads, the unidentified corridors. This is what people colloquially refer to as ancient roads generally, and this is the legal term. Unidentified corridors were defined as all highways that meet four very specific tests. First, they had to be laid out properly. If it wasn't laid out properly, it wasn't a road in the first place. Second, they did not appear on the map prior to 2010. They're not clearly in use as a highway. They are not legal trails. If they pass all those tests, they're an unidentified corridor. Next, we quote 19 VSA 302, Section B, which mandates advance notice prior to entering private property to inspect a possible right-of-way, and Section G that establishes all unidentified corridors will be discontinued in 2015.
And so lastly, we have included 19 VSA 717C, which dictates what happens if a town highway being discontinued actually landlocks a piece of land. And in that case, a private way is created along that access.
And so with that background, we'll just quickly bring you through what happened in this case from our perspective. So this is going to clearly show that the town did not follow the law. We want to emphasize that this is absolutely not a personal thing, and we're just pointing out mistakes. We're not here to embarrass anyone. It is important, however, that we go through this thoroughly so that you can understand exactly what the law passed by the state legislature required, and how our rights under the law have not been respected. And we feel very fortunate to live in a place that we can do this, that we have the opportunity to come here and tell you that we don't think the law was respected, knowing that our institutions are strong enough to correct this. So we'll lay out 4 key facts, which are summarized on page 12 of your handouts.
So our first key fact is that the town didn't include any road or right-of-way along the route of Legal Trail 8 in its official road mapping before 2017. So to support that fact, we've printed copies of the town road maps from 2009 to 2018 and put them in your packet. Those are from pages 14 through 21. So in these maps, we've highlighted in red the area that shows where LT8 was mapped. And you'll see that the first time LT8 shows up on the maps is on the 2017 version. We've also attached maps from 1941 on page 22, and a town map that we were able to locate from 1856 on page 23. And the road doesn't appear on either of those maps either. So doesn't show up on any maps prior to 2017. And finally, we attached a letter that the town sent us on January 25th of this past year, or I guess of this year, actually, 2019, in response to our inquiries about the road. The letter is on page 24 through 26 of the packet. And in that letter, the town actually acknowledged that LT8 was, quote, left off maps for years with no known reason.
The second key fact is that the documentation of the road that was provided to us doesn't match what's been mapped. We asked for documentation of the road, and you provided it to us in January 2015 in a note. What you attached was a handwritten note titled Survey of a Road from 1825 that you said lays out the road. I included this letter in the packet, that's the thing 24 through 26, and highlighted where you transcribed it, because none of us can read that, the cursive there, it's really hard.
Ancient cursive.
Thanks for transcribing it. Enough details included there to be absolutely sure that this doesn't match the road that was mapped. The route of legal trail number 8, the road mapped in 2018, according to the official town map filed with VTrans, is 1.1 miles in length. The handwritten survey of a road states that the road starts at Thaddeus Thayer's house, runs 20 rods southwest, and then 70 rods due west to the intersection of roads that leads to Athens. So the road laid out was 20 rods long plus 70 rods long. A rod's a unit of measurement equal to 16.5 feet. 90 rods, 20 plus 70 rods equals 1,485 feet, or 0.28 miles, not 1.1 miles. Additionally, the survey states the road ran southwest, 20 rods, which is about 110 yards, and then due west for 70 rods, or 385 yards, and terminates at the intersection of roads that leads to Athens. Now, we have included on the next page, page 27, a map where we drew a little outline of what that would look like, a road that runs southwest for 20 rods and then west for 40 rods. And you can't lay that over on any piece of the mapped road and have it fit. It says that it terminates at the road to Athens, which I think I would interpret that as Route 121. And it says it terminates on the west end is the Route 121. Well, that doesn't work. The road's to the west of Route 121. It would have to be on the other side to end up ending at Route 121. So it just doesn't really make sense. We don't think this is evidence that the road was laid out. There may be other evidence in the archives if some more digging is done, but this doesn't match it.
So the third point that we wanted to make is that the roadway is quite vague and unused. So in the legal terms, quote, it is not clearly observable by evidence of use as a highway. The map on page 27 of your packets shows the road as it was mapped and officially provided to VTrans by the town, and it doesn't match the location of the signs that were placed there. And we just wanted to make it clear that the road that was mapped recently doesn't actually follow the evidence of a corridor on the ground. And along the route that it was mapped, there are large sections of forest with 100-plus-year-old trees, and no evidence of a trail. So to show this, we actually walked the route as mapped and collected photographs along the legal trail. We noted the location where these images were taken on the numbered map that was on that page 27 of your packet. And we've included several of those images on pages 28 through 35, so you can take a look at those on your own. But when you do, you'll see that Legal Trail 8 is going through forest with large trees and is a pretty hard to find route. Even if you were to argue that the mapping was just a little bit off track in some sections, the closest logging roads were actually built during our log job in 2013, and they didn't exist prior to that logging job. So the key fact basically is that on July 1st of 2010, there was no clear physical evidence of this route of a highway or a trail.
Just one thing that might be helpful, the photos are taken along the direction of travel, one in each direction at the points there.
And the last fact is just a statement about process shortcomings. So no written notice was provided to us as landowners of an opportunity to be duly heard prior to the mapping of LT8 in 2017. We understand that a member of the select board mapped LT8 by traversing our property sometime in the spring of 2017, and they didn't provide us written notice of this. Grafton didn't undertake proceedings for laying out, altering, reclassifying, or discontinuing a highway along the route of LT8 in modern times. And such proceedings would have required a publicly warned meeting and written notification to us, and at very least this would have been required for converting a town highway to a legal trail. So to summarize, no written notice was provided to us at any of the time during the process, despite the law requiring it repeatedly.
So now we've told you about the law, we've highlighted the facts of what we think happened here. The last step is to combine the facts of the case with the law as it's written and evaluate them. We recall the simple layman's flow chart. Now we get to have the real flow chart here at the end. And where the layman's flow chart said the town didn't meet the deadline, the road was vague, and the town didn't follow the due process. Same idea now. Now the more complicated flow charts on page 36 and 37. First up in the left corner, we have 2006, Act 178 gets passed. The two key amendments that the law made to 19 VSA 305 are there to the right. They required all class 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 highways and legal trails in existence to be mapped annually and for sure prior to 2015. The town didn't do those. We showed you that legal trail number 8 doesn't appear on the maps until 2017. So the town therefore repeatedly submitted sworn statements indicating that this road doesn't exist. We mentioned the law also created a category of roads called unidentified corridors. In layman's term is the ancient roads. Here we want to respond specifically to the January 25th letter. In there you state that our road, along with others, were found not to be ancient roads by definition. They were simply town roads left off the map for no known reason. Well, there's no such thing as an ancient road legally defined in 19 VSA. We presume you're attempting to say that Old Town Farm Road was not an unidentified corridor, and I can see the legal argument that you might be trying to make. If you figure then that it's possible to avoid the road's discontinuance in 2015 if you could successfully define it as an unmapped Class 4 road and not that was in use and not as an unidentified corridor. Even if you were successful in that argument, the town would still have to deal with many issues. The sworn statements that no road existed, the fact that the survey laying out the road clearly doesn't match it, the lack of following due process. But we want to show you how hard an argument it would be to even say this isn't an unidentified corridor, the one last option available. I've laid out the 4 tests set out in the law for determining whether something is an unidentified corridor verbatim in the flowchart. First test, highways have to be laid out by the proper authority. Well, we would argue that's not the case here. We haven't yet seen evidence that this was properly laid out. Maybe it does exist somewhere in the archives. We haven't had time to root around it. Let's pretend it does, and let's pretend we pass that test. If we don't pass that test, there was never a road in the first place. There's no discussion. Second test, if the road did not appear on the town map as of July 1st, 2010. Yep, we showed you all the maps. Clearly it didn't appear on the town map in 2010. Third test, they're otherwise not clearly observable by physical evidence of their use as a highway or trail. We showed you pictures that the route mapped goes through dense forest 100 years old. We note that no town use of any of our woods roads has occurred in half a century since we've owned the property in our family. The town only recently started objecting to the fact that the properties are gated. And now I know you're likely to go look at the roads as part of this. I want you to understand and recognize we did a logging job in 2013. Entering through the roads you've marked with signs as Legal Trail 8. The road that had been mapped at Legal Trail 8 most closely follows some logging roads, but those didn't even exist in 2010. Any work we did on those roads to open them up is not relevant. A right-of-way became an unidentified corridor in 2010 before we logged in 2013. So it seems like we can't seem to tell where the road was, and no one's used it in half a century. The fourth test was that the right-of-way was whether the right-of-way was already a legal trail. LT8 is currently mapped as a legal trail, but no such designation existed in 1825 when it was laid out. It would have definitely been laid out as a time highway if it was laid out at all. In the flowchart, we quote the ancient road practicum where it states there's a process to follow for reclassifying a town highway to a legal trail. And to the best of our knowledge, that hasn't been done properly. That requires warning, a public meeting, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I don't see any way we can get through to inserting that Legal Trail didn't become an unidentified corridor in 2010 and wasn't extinguished in 2015. If you follow the flowchart further on the next page, I highlight the due process parts of the law which required 45 days notice. a duly warned public meeting, a process to reclassify the unidentified corridor from that highway to the legal trail. If the process had been followed as written, we would have been notified in writing at least 3 times. The lack of notice was made it so that we couldn't really understand what was going on. The remainder of the flow chart talks about what happens after discontinuance, a private right-of-way is created and transferred to us. I highlighted in red everywhere I think the town failed or made a mistake or something like that. And I encourage you to read the chart carefully because that's really that's the legal language and everything there.
So now what we've all been waiting for, this is what we're asking for. Thank you for your patience. Because the unidentified corridor was not mapped before the deadline, was mapped in a location unsupported by the evidence, and was mapped without legally required notice to the landowners, the legal trail is not valid. Instead, as required under statute, and I quote, "After July 1, 2015, the corridor shall be discontinued and the right-of-way shall belong to the owner of the adjoining land," unquote. So since our property could potentially become landlocked due to a discontinuance of a town highway, a private right-of-way would be created for us under 19 VSA 717C, which states, and I quote, "A person whose sole means of access to a parcel of land or portion thereof is by way of a town highway that is subsequently discontinued shall retain a private right-of-way over the former town highway for access to the parcel of land or portion thereof," unquote.
So because the town's claim has muddied the property title by mapping this road in 2017 and 2018, we're requesting that the town formally relinquish all rights to Old Town Farm Road as a public right-of-way of any form, and that they institute a private right-of-way to our landlocked property along the proper former right-of-way. The only proper way to do this now is by a public warned action following the rules under 19 VSA Chapter 7.
All
Thank
very
you.
much for your
Really
patience.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is important to us.
There you go. Look into it. We will make sure that we have an answer for you, whether it's good, bad, or different, but we will find out whether or not this is an accurate road. If it's not, obviously, then, you know.
Do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, while we're here at this meeting, do you want to open it up to any questions?
I have a question. Nora and Hayden, when did you, not that it should make a difference, but I'm just curious, when did that property become your property?
I did a forest management plan in 2008, and we did own it then, so I think it was 2006 or 7. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other business?
Mr. Chair, would it be possible to put this presentation online so that we could see it ourselves? I would also request that we have the health officer job description placed online.
The health officer job description, I'm not sure that we have one.
What is the document?
I mean, there is one. I mean, he's a health officer, but I don't know if there's an actual one that has in Grafton.
I'll put it on the website. Done.
I don't know.
Okay, from the state, it'll be the state.
It'll be the states.
Bill, the document I was referring to is the one you were going to give to the select board?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
just,
perfect.
what it is basically, it probably isn't in PowerPoint format, but that's basically,
that's great.
that's what I'm looking for.
And could we also get the presentation that it was just presented online as well?
Can you get all that online on the thing?
Yeah, I need to go back through first of all, it's on TV. Anybody can watch it anytime, okay?
Well, we can't see it.
No. And secondly, once I've looked at it on TV, I'll try to figure out, I mean, I can put the whole thing on through all the pages, but I really couldn't follow it, so.
We can send it to you electronically if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
If you have it electronically, that would certainly help us.
Yeah, if you give it to me electronically in this format, that'd be great.
Maybe we can get an email address before we leave, whoever.
Well, just talk to Bill, and he'll give you the email address for the town hall, and You can ship it to them.
Thank you,
Send it.
thank you very much.
As long as it's less than 20 megabytes.
Okay.
Now, you have a lot of pictures and maps, or you can break it up and I can see.
Seems like we should have some
We can manage
discussion
one way or another.
as far as how do we think we're gonna proceed? Put it on another agenda?
I have a problem putting it online until we've had time to look at it. That's my
I don't
issue.
know.
That's why I'm
I'll go all along.
Can we at least, if we're gonna put it on another agenda, can we at least
Yeah,
find a date that works for them and us to get?
I'm fine with that,
pick a date?
Joe.
I think,
The
Susan, I
timing
think-
is up to you.
I think we
The
have
timing
to,
is
I mean, this is a very complicated
Yeah,
issue
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
And to put it online, I'm not saying that it's not accurate, it's just
No.
that I think we need to take a look at it. So I would request that we don't put this online until we have a chance to discuss
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I think if it's in
Or do
conjunction
the
with
research.
I'm fine, having it be in conjunction with the item being on an agenda so that we can be prepared for the
Right.
discussion. But to have it on, 2 or 3 weeks ahead, I take your point entirely, and so I amend my request to say.
Right, yeah, and then also, Susan, this was not an agenda item, so to
Right.
put it on there, because that was my original thought, we need to have this on the agenda, so there might be other people who would
Right.
be interested and they would be able to take a look
I
at it.
take your point.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
We'd obviously rather not do this again, but if we do, we'll have it up on a screen so that the audience, if we absolutely
well,
must do this again.
I mean, the
we
meeting,
don't want to-
I'm not sure where this is gonna take. First of all, are you available for our next meeting, which is what, the 6th, I think?
You have one in May, we can't do the one
There's
in
one in
May.
May, the 20th.
You couldn't make it,
The next one we can't do.
right, you couldn't do the May, I'm talking about the June one.
June 4th would make that.
June 4th, can you available on June 4th?
June 3rd, I think it is.
Whatever,
June
3rd.
3rd.
June 3rd?
We can, if
Okay.
need be.
So we'll put you on the agenda for June 3rd. If the meeting is here, we have electronic stuff here, you can put it right here, it's not an issue. If this turns out to be something where they're gonna have a lot of people, then we have to move it to the school, and that becomes another issue. But yes, we can have screens and all those kinds of things to make
Yeah,
it.
there's a projector.
Yeah.
I understand you not wanting to do this again.
You don't want us to do it again.
I feel as responsible as anybody in this room, that we're here. I was the one that GPS'd it. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't ask for permission, didn't think about permission. You know, when I worked for the state, I walked on all kinds of lands without permission. I didn't even think about it. So I feel very responsible that, or part of the problem, I guess you'd say. At this point, I would like it to be done in an open public meeting, and I don't want somebody to say, well, they came and they talked and they swept it under the rug because the select board, somebody did a wrong thing. So we've opened it up, and I think at this point, I know you don't want to do it again, and I'm not happy to sit through it again either. Knowing my name's in red, you know, I get it, but I think that's the right thing to do, that we do it in an open public meeting and if there's other people that, you know, want to come to your support, or there's people that have some information we don't have, but at this point in time, I think it should be done in an open.
Absolutely.
We just want to be clear.
Yeah,
We're
no,
not
I
upset
understand.
about you walking across.
Yeah.
We're just looking at what the law
Thank you
says.
for,
I
thank you for
understand.
noting
And
that.
sure, if that was the
Appreciate
only
that.
thing that was wrong, it would never be done.
Yeah.
No, I understand, but still, I'm not proud of it, that this, like, wow, I guess I should ask
We
permission.
forgive you, Al.
Huh?
We forgive you, but stay off that lane.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll send her after you.
we'll put you on the agenda for the 3rd of June, and if anything changes, I'll let Bill know, if something comes up and we can postpone it to another date.
Okay, but, you don't think, is there a chance that the select board will have an opportunity to look through the documents and
Oh, absolutely, I mean, we're gonna
Would
do a lot of
they-
research
is
before
there
that.
any possibility, sorry for interrupting, is there any possibility that they would just say, oh, wow, the law
I don't know.
is such and such?
I can't speak for the
Hard to
board.
say.
I mean, we have to digest this thing and take a look at it and then, you know, come to a conclusion, so, okay?
Okay, pretty well, thank you.
Since there's no other business.
I just got one other thing.
Okay.
Bill, you're gonna contact Green Mountain Power or VTEL on that pole down on 121. Did you ever hear back from them to get that pole?
Oh, yeah, I was promised that each other would be gone. Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still.
Well, it's that, I was told that that lady who says it'll be done immediately never gets it done immediately, so.
Okay.
I'll
I
try
mean,
somebody else.
there's guy wires down there.
Immediately, but the different definition for Vermont Tel is,
Anything else? The next meeting is public, the select board meeting and a public hearing on May 20th. So the select board meeting will be at Grafton Elementary School at 5 o'clock, and the public hearing will take place shortly after that at 6. So.
And I can transfer myself.
Do the presenters at the public hearing need to notify the Grafton administrator ahead of time, or plan to just speak at the meeting?
I don't know.
I didn't understand the question.
She wants to know if somebody's gonna speak at the meeting, do they have to be notified ahead of time? Or can they just come and speak?
Does anyone do they have to notify
It's
you?
a public.
It's a public hearing, so
public hearing.
anybody can speak.
So anybody can speak anytime, once the presentation by V-Trans is done.
Yeah.
What they expect is questions on,
Right.
and people to be honest with them and tell them that it's a stupid idea to not have a bypass or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what they wanna know. They wanna know, is it gonna work? And I've already heard from a lot of people it isn't gonna work for them personally, so, as well as businesses.
And
That's
I was
what
contacted.
what the meeting's for.
And I was contacted by a member of the Wyndham Foundation, and she wants to bring the senators there, and she asked me that same question, and I said, bring them, it's a public hearing, they can do whatever they want.
Okay.
All right, move to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. See you on the 20th, not before.
I want to just.
Bill, how's this